get started here this morning. We handled our housekeeping items with the candidates.
So yeah, in downtown Mexico, they call it the Zocalo. That's like the basic layout of urban planning in old stuff. No, it's free.
For today, first and foremost, I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for being here. These are a great opportunity for us at the Colorado Business Roundtable to really highlight a lot of the great work and the great leadership that goes on in the state. I mentioned during the Republican Forum that we held last month that one of the things that we're most proud of at the Colorado Business Roundtable is the quality of candidates and the passion throughout the ticket, both the Republican and the Democratic side. We are blessed with a lot of talent that is willing to step up, put their name on the line. Running for office is not easy. I've asked all four of them how they're doing, and I think tired with either the first or second word out of their mouth. They were trying to get to Summit County last night, and the snow on 70, and the demands to crisscross this state and attend events and forums and breakfast clubs and a lot of the outreach that goes on. Truly incredible. And so first and foremost, please join me in thanking the candidates. The Colorado Business Roundtable, for those of you that aren't familiar with who and what we are and what we do at the Roundtable, we're a policy organization that really kind of tries to thread the needle on creating the type of framework and fabric in the state and the region and the country that develops a type of meaningful, kind of significant policy outreach that levels the playing field, reduces the hurdles and the burdens for business to grow and thrive here in the state. But that is really the reason and the ways that we develop the kind of meaningful, long-term, systematic, and significant growth and economic development that we all need here in the state. We work with some incredible partners. We kind of talked a little bit, those that have heard the ABCGs, our partners in academia and business and community and government. We're blessed to have some incredible partners. We're blessed to have some great sponsors of this event. I'd like to bring up first Peter Moore from Vital for Colorado, our title sponsor of this event, to give a welcome to Vital. So Peter.
Thanks, Lance. Jeff, and thank all of you for coming. Just a quick word about Vital for Colorado. We also work on policy issues, and we try to advocate for the national middle at both state and local level. We now have about 85,000 people as part of our coalition who have signed the 7 Principles Pledge. And we have a 14-person board of directors run by many organizations that you're very well aware of, including Colorado Business Roundtable. Jeff and Daniel are on board. But we also have representatives of the Aurora Chamber, the South End Metro Chamber, Colorado Concern, and several other organizations and businesses. Thank you very much for coming. It's going to be a very interesting year, and very happy to comments today. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Jen from AT&T. For those of you that commented earlier about our congressional conference call series that's hosted by AT&T. We were talking with Jared earlier. It's a great opportunity for folks to engage and hear from our congressional delegation without doing those lengthy and sometimes costly DC fly-ins. And so we're honored to partner with AT&T that hosts those series. To our other sponsors today, PBC Energy, to Colorado Succeeds, Common Sense Policy Roundtable, and Quarterly Forum. Thank you. Thank you for your support and for your partnership. So please join me in thanking our sponsors. With that, I'm going to save some kind of my remarks at the close. There's some incredible upcoming events, including one next week on the state of higher ed, later today on manufacturing. We're heading down to Pueblo with Congressman Lamborn to talk about the energy manufacturing sector. We've got some work-based learning, some cybersecurity events, a healthcare forum coming up. So we want to make sure you know how to get engaged and plugged in with the activities and events of the Roundtable. But we have partnered with the Denver Business Journal on really a 3-part series. For those of you who have heard Defining Colorado's Next Governor series on Connect and Collaborate at KDMT 1690 really starting to engage and give the candidates an opportunity to talk with the listening audience and share their ideas and their background. A lot more about them as a candidate and why they wanted to run. The second component of that is the print pieces that Ed has been running and the follow-up in the Denver Business Journal. And then this is the third component, to really sit down and give you a chance to really see all of the candidates together and start to make some of those decisions about where they are on particular issues and who you're willing to get behind and support, because they do need that time, talent, and treasure that they all talked about. So with that, we'll bring up our partner, Ed Seelever from the Denver Business Journal, to do a welcome from the DBJ and then get the forms to Ed.
Well, thank you all for coming out bright and early this morning, especially any of you I saw monitoring the budget debate last night, which went also into the AM. First of all, welcome to the Denver Business Journal. For those of you who know us and those of you who don't, we are a weekly print paper that tries to turn out 10 to 15 stories a day as well on our website. We cover government purely from the angle of how it affects business in this community, as well as all other areas of business as well. So please tune in as we will continue to cover this race, other state races, and the Colorado legislature to inform how government intersects with business in this state. That said, I want to now welcome up our candidates. For those of you who are at the last forum, you'll know that what we're going to try to do today is hit a lot of different topics, try to get some specificity on answers with these candidates, and really give you a feel for where these candidates stand to help you inform your vote. So with that, I will just, in general, call up to the stage and welcome U.S. Representative Eric Polis, former Treasurer Kerry Kennedy, former State Senator Michael Johnson, and Lieutenant Governor Donald. Great. As you see, we really seek cooperation and collaboration here. That's why we have 3 mics and 4 candidates. So we'll let you all decide how to share those. And we'll just jump right into it. We've asked the candidates to just give a 1-minute opening so we can get to topics after that. But starting on your far end here with former Colorado Treasurer Kerry Kennedy, please introduce yourselves and tell the audience what you'd like to know about.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you all so much for being here. I'm Kerry Kennedy. It's a privilege to be here as a candidate for governor. I'm proud to have been a part of Colorado's leadership team for more than a decade, including serving as the state treasurer position I was elected to in 2006, and also as the chief financial officer for the city of Denver. We are proud of Colorado. Today, we have together built what is the top-ranked economy in the country. And also, U.S. News & World Report has ranked Colorado number 4 in the country for our business climate. I'm proud to have been a part of the team that has helped lay the foundation for this success. And I'm running for governor to continue the great work that we are doing here, and also make sure that our progress and our prosperity reaches everyone in our state. I think there are 3 things we need to do here in Colorado. First, we need to make public education our state's top priority. It doesn't make any sense that we have the top-ranked economy and our investment in our education system ranks at the bottom. We need to keep healthcare accessible and affordable for everyone here in Colorado. It is why I propose that we offer a public health insurance option to everyone in our state. And finally, we need to do a much better job preparing and managing for growth. We're forecasting another 4 to 5 million people to move into our state. I don't think we've adequately planned or prepared for the growth that we have today. And we need to make sure that we make the investments in transit and transportation, in communications and energy that keep this state the place that we all love in the face of that kind of growth. Thank you all for being here. I look forward to our conversation.
Thank you. And I'll jump in real quick. I forgot to mention to you all, Lisa here will be in the front row holding up cards. Yellow means you got 30 seconds left. Red means it's to wrap up. Thank you. Lieutenant Governor Donald.
Well, good morning. It's great to see so many of you that I've worked with over the last 13 plus years. I'm Donna Lynn. I am the Lieutenant Governor and the Chief Operating Officer for the state of Colorado, which is a concept John Hickenlooper came up with because, quite frankly, the state is a pretty big and complicated organization. We've got 31,000 employees and about a $31 billion budget, I think, as of last night. I've got 20 years of experience in the public sector myself, both at the federal level, state level, and at the municipal level, and 20 years in the private sector, running big healthcare organizations. And there's no question that the state is, as you heard from Carrie, in a great place. But that's perhaps not always going to be the case. We still have some huge problems ahead of us, whether it's dealing with our transportation, dealing with our water problems, dealing with healthcare, which is the #1 issue that I hear about when I travel around the state, and dealing with affordable housing. I have to tell you, I have been surprised and concerned about, no matter where you are, housing is talked about. La Junta, Lamar, Salida. I am a pragmatic person. I deliver solutions. I've been part of this business community, and I know what you want is clarity, results, and somebody who can actually deliver. And I'm pleased to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Congressman Jared Polis.
Hi everybody, a little bit about myself. I've started and grew and managed a number of successful companies. I'm running because I want Colorado to be the best place to start a business, grow a business. We have a terrific economy in this state. I have not only started businesses, I've raised capital, both public and private. I'm passionate about capital formation. I want to make sure we can draw in capital to help all of our sectors of our economy grow from both coasts and do a better job with homegrown capital here in Colorado. In addition to having run several companies and taken the company public, I've started schools to serve at-risk kids. And I know enough about the legislative world, having brought Republicans and Democrats together in Congress to get big things done. I'm running on the power of bold ideas. I'm running because at my table there's a 4-month-old named Vivian, the youngest person in the room. I want to make sure that she has the opportunity to go to preschool and kindergarten in this state. One of my priorities is making sure that every child has access to full-day preschool and kindergarten, not only an educational issue for kids, but an affordability and an economic issue for families who wrestle with the cost of childcare and the high cost of living.
Thank you. And former State Senator Mike Johnson.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Looking forward to the conversation this morning. For those of you that I haven't met before, folks may know as part of my standard bio, I spent the better part of a decade as a state senator here, Capitol down the street, and the better part of a decade before that as a school principal running 3 different innovative schools around the city. What some folks don't know is that, like many of the folks in this room, I grew up on the western slope of Colorado running a family business, and a business that my brother and I and my mom still own and run together, which means over the last 25 years, we've gone through all the hard processes of how you make payroll and what you do when you don't make payroll, and how you survive the recession and how you try to grow your way back out of it. I've started more than 6 organizations, both nonprofit and for-profit, over the scope of my career, and like many of the entrepreneurs in this room, some have been quite successful and some have not, and so learn from both of those. And so range from $40 million a year ventures that are national to those that are very small and community-based, that are nonprofit entities based in North Park Hill. And so I think I have that experience of both what it takes to try to build a vision, to try to hire a team to execute that vision, and to try to follow the data to see how you get better, and also what it means to manage big budgets towards outcomes. As the chair of the Finance Committee, oversaw the state budget for 5 years, and so have that experience from, I think, the small business to the legislative to long-term impact, and excited to talk about how we build the best possible business climate for the state of Colorado. Thanks so much for having me.
Great. Thank you all very much. Let's dive right in here. First topic is Colorado continues to attract employers and maintain one of the nation's lowest unemployment rates. It faces a surging anti-growth sentiment, evident in results of November's municipal elections and in a proposed initiative to limit growth in Front Range to 1% new housing a year. 2-part question here to start us off. First of all, do you agree that we need to restrict growth in the state? If so, how do we do that? And if not, what specifically would you do to ensure employment growth can continue in this state and to get out the message that Colorado is open for business? Let's start with Treasurer Kennedy.
Thanks, Ed. I don't think we can or should restrict growth, but we need to do a much better job planning and preparing for the growth that we have today. That means making sure that we're making the investments in infrastructure, in transit, in transportation, so we're not all sitting in traffic and so that our businesses across the state can move their goods to the market. We're all well aware that 40% of the lane miles in this state are rated in poor condition. We have fallen far behind on making the investments in transportation and transit that build a prosperous business community and economy for our future. The investments in broadband, I'm thrilled to see the legislature appropriate the funds to bring broadband to more communities across our state, because I hear far too often from communities that their internet goes down and their storefronts can't process transactions on weekends. So as this growth comes, we need to make sure we're making the investments to protect our state and to accommodate the people who are moving here. It's also an environmental agenda. As our population continues to grow, we have to protect our open space. You can look at GoCo as a great example from the last 25, 30 years that has helped us accomplish that goal. We need to protect our public lands and not sell them off for development, because they generate huge economic activity for this state. We need to protect our air quality and our water quality. People will move here, businesses move here, because for the same reason we're all here. We love this place, and we need to make sure we're taking the steps to keep Colorado's air among the cleanest in the country, to protect the health of our rivers, and make the investments in water infrastructure, in efficiency, and in conservation, so that we have those resources for years to come. So no, we can't stop growth. I don't support imposing caps on growth in communities. I think it just forces growth into the neighboring communities. But we can do a much better job working together on land management and water management so that we grow in ways that are more sustainable.
Thank you. Lieutenant Governor Lynn?
I also do not support any limits on growth. I think we've got to think thoughtfully about how we do that thing. We have an opportunity through a broad economic development strategy for this state to not only address how we're growing, but where we ought to be growing and how we create incentives for businesses to locate perhaps outside of the Front Range. I've been struck because all of us have been asked the Amazon question, and when I think about big businesses coming into Colorado, I think about those other communities where they don't have those opportunities. We also need a workforce development strategy around people, because we've got to continue to have the best and the brightest here. Our economy is changing dramatically. We don't necessarily need four-year degrees without the kinds of skills that businesses are now demanding. So thinking about not only some of the existing apprenticeship programs that we have with our trades, but other types of apprenticeship programs that recognize where's this economy going, who are we going to need, and how do we create pathways for young people to get into those kind of jobs. I've been struck by the lack of communication, although I see Ken Weil here, and I have to say, I remember working on this project with him. Universities doing what universities do, and businesses saying, hey, university, you're not talking to me. So identifying what kind of skills and people we need and connecting with universities is important to me. When I worked in the private sector, I brought 1,000 technology jobs here from California, because California's tax rates were really high and congestion was really bad. And I don't want Colorado to become that place again. We've got to make sure we have ready talent, we know what employers want, and we're training people, and we're making the work environment hospitable for businesses to continue to grow here and to relocate jobs.
Thank you. Mr. Bowles?
So, this is the right question that taps into the anxiety people have about growth. I think trying to stop or end or reduce growth is the wrong answer to the right question. The right answer is, how do we make growth work for Colorado? How do we do it in a way that preserves our quality of life that we all come to love and cherish? How do we make sure that we don't turn into another California, as Donna said? How do we make sure that people are able to enjoy the quality of life that makes Colorado special, whether that means getting to the mountains on weekends, whether it means if you're in the suburbs, being able to get into Denver to enjoy the great cultural resources of our capital city, or perhaps for work. And we know that it will likely fall to the next governor to build a coalition to do better. Now, there might be efforts this year at the ballot box around infrastructure that the Metro Chamber is working on that may or may not come to fruition. I certainly wish them luck. But regardless, it will certainly follow the next governor to either deploy or work with a broad-based coalition of the business community, Republicans and Democrats, to get ahead of the curve on infrastructure rather than always playing catch-up. And that's what we need to do to be able to make sure that we can make growth work for us. So instead of the voters of Colorado feeling like growth is something that is being done to them that detracts from their quality of life, we want to see growth as a way that provides more opportunity for Coloradans, a way that allows us to enhance our quality of life and provides revenues to our schools and to our parks. And I think that we can get that right with the right leadership. And that's really why I'm running for governor, to build that coalition to make growth work for our state and work for our citizens.
Thank you. Senator Johnson.
Thank you. My dad had a great saying that this reminds me of, which is sometimes the only thing worse than being hated is being loved. Just if you look around and see 22 trains in Metro Denver, that's a lot of love, which is, I think, a good problem to have. It just means you have to figure out how to solve that problem. And for me, the answer is you don't stop growth, you plan growth. And so I think there are three major parts of that tension we have to address. One is housing affordability, one is transportation infrastructure, and the third is long-term talent supply. And say a word about each, and hopefully we'll come back to these, I'm sure. On the housing front, what we know right now is in 20 years, we have not had a single year where the single top issue on the western slope is the same as the top issue on the front range. This is the first year where that's been the case, and that top issue is housing. And so what you see, whether it's Durango or Grand Junction or Denver, folks can't either afford to live in the communities where they work or live in the communities where they grew up. And that is enough to drive real frustration about the state that you love. And so we've proposed a policy on how you can dramatically expand the stock of affordable housing in the state by creating public-private partnerships that allow the state to use the asset we do have a tremendous amount of, which is not cash and is not credits, it is land. And so being able to do public-private partnerships with the state and local governments provide land on a 30 or 50-year lease to developers who could build units that then would keep those affordable to renters for 30 to 50 years. And as you know, land is often 30% of the cost of a deal, and so if you come to the table with that, you change the price component of what's possible for new renters. Transportation talent, in the short amount of time I have, the CU School of Business came out about 3 months ago and said the major gating factor in Colorado's growth over the next few years are not going to be ballot measures. It's going to be both a shortage of quality trained people to fill the jobs that are emerging and infrastructure that can move people and goods across the state enough to keep the economy moving. And so those are the two major challenges we're going to have to solve if we keep growth growing. That's why we have a plan called the Colorado Promise, which is focused on listening to employers to identify what the jobs are that are in highest demand around the state and what specific skills those jobs require and how we get folks the training they need for the skills that are coming and then how we make the key investments in infrastructure so we make sure folks can move those goods and those people around the state. I'd love to come back and talk more about that. Thank you.
Well, you're correct, Senator Johnson. That was the opening question, and now we're going to dive into more specific topics. And so let's start with Lieutenant Governor Lynn on this round of questions. Colorado, and points for you to being prescient in your answer that this was coming. Colorado continues to attract significant company expansion, but at the same time, employers complain about a lack of potential workers who have the skills that they need. A full 83% of jobs with above average wages in the state will require an associate's degree or higher. That only 46% of Coloradans 25 or older have that. So, with that as a saying, please identify for us what you think Colorado is doing right in its workforce development efforts, and also any specific ways that the state government, with you as its head, would pivot to address what the state is not doing correctly.
I could just say the state's doing everything right since I am the state, but I won't. One of the things, though, that I was privileged to work on, and we do this in the state, and it should give you some reassurance, is we have a 5-year master plan for higher education, and we just released it back in the fall, and we did identify, in fact, not only the percentage of people that we need to attain college degrees, but also something that we're very concerned about, which is an achievement gap between people of color and people who are not. And we have very specific plans about how to deal with that. Now, the state doesn't control the universities, so that's one of the challenges. But we do have, and I was privileged back in 2013 to be part of something called the Higher Education Outcomes Funding Task Force. So I was appointed by the governor to co-chair that. And like you, who care about accountability, that literally changed the funding formula for higher ed to turn it into a success formula, partially, not entirely. And so what we've got to do is make sure our universities are thinking about turning out talent on time and turning out the right kind of talent. The second, in addition to working with universities, is identifying, as I said, this project that we worked on years ago. Governor Ritter was the governor, and I was at the business side of it, and we said, what do we need, and how do we get people to have those skills, to be actuaries, to be in technology, and so forth. So I think you've seen a little bit of an invisible hand of that working with schools like DSST and other kind of STEM schools, and we've got to continue to do that kind of partnership work as we go forward. What the state isn't doing, I think it's hard to collaborate with 178 school districts, quite frankly. We have a hands-off relationship with the Department of Education. I brought Katie Anthus, the head of the Department of Education, into the governor's cabinet. That didn't exist before. And so Katie, Kim Hunter-Reid, who runs higher ed, and I sit down all the time and talk about how does the pipeline get developed so that we have the workers for the future.
Thank you. Congressman Coles?
Yeah, no, Kim Hunter-Reid is a great asset to the state over at CCHE. She's doing a terrific job. You know, I think there's opportunities across our state for this skills pipeline and career pipeline. Where we fall short is it doesn't reach every student. It's not in every school. And I'll highlight a few. When I was in Greeley a few weeks ago and visited Ames Community College, which, by the way, leads the state in terms of high school enrollment. Over a third of the students at Ames Community College are dual and concurrent enrollment students from high school. On site at Ames, they have an early college high school, where every student who graduates from high school, almost all first-generation college goers, majority Latino, majority low income, everybody gets an associate's degree concurrent with their high school degree. We also have a program in Colorado, the Ascent program, which allows students to spend a 5th year in high school if that's what it takes to complete their associate's degree. But the bottom line is, both from the economic side and the business side, we need to make sure that people have skills above and beyond a high school degree to be able to fill the jobs and the skills that you need. And from the individual perspective, and the perspective of opportunity, young people who want to succeed, and people of all ages, need that skill to succeed in today's 21st century economy above and beyond a high school degree. That's not a 4-year degree in college by any means for everybody. That's why the importance of programs like CareerWise, the importance of dual and concurrent enrollment programs, the importance of union apprenticeship programs, which all exist in silos in our state. I would see the challenge of the governor is using the levers we have, largely CCHE, but also the Bully Pulpit and the School Finance Act with regard to school districts and community colleges, to build the partnerships to make sure that there is a pathway for every student in Colorado, whether they live in Trinidad or Sterling or Denver or Greeley, that we don't miss kids that simply go through the system and only wind up with a high school degree without a path forward for either additional education or a skill that allows them to get a good job to support themselves. And that will be my focus as governor, making sure these opportunities are universal across our state.
Thank you. Senator Johnson?
All right, in 2 minutes. So I think what's working is we have good people leading good organizations of higher ed trying to solve this problem. I think what's not working is the system we have is not aligned enough, and it's not nimble enough. I'll tell you what I mean. Not aligned enough, I think the problem is we have workforce training and development in higher ed institutions that are not aligned to what employers actually need folks to be able to do when they arrive on the job. And I think that's because we have this old system where the legacy lazy label was you need a bachelor's degree to apply, or you need a master's degree to apply, which was just a placeholder. I've done this myself, right? Of the thousands of folks we've hired to say, oh, we can't take the time to enumerate the skills we actually need, so we'll just say bachelor's degree. And what we know is there actually are a specific set of enumerated skills you need for those jobs. So as we move away from a degree-based certification system and more towards a skills-based system, we allow employers to tell us exactly what the skills are that they need so we can prepare folks with those skills. The second part of that is we have to be much more nimble because we have to be able to respond to a rapidly changing economic environment in which your needs as a business are going to change much faster than 4-year degree programs are going to respond. And so if you look at the data right now, what we know is young people entering the workforce today, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, they're going to have 8 to 10 different careers over the course of their lifetime. And almost every one of those careers are going to require some sort of post-secondary skills. And they're often different. That means workforce development is not going to be something you get at age 18 or 21 that's like an inoculation shot that keeps you for the next 50 years anymore. It's going to be every 5 or 6 years you've got to be reskilled, upskilled, and new skills. And that means if you're 43 with 3 kids, you can't afford to go back for a 4-year degree in the middle of your career. What you do want is a clear sense of here's the 8 skills I have, here's the 3 skills I need to apply for that job with the employer where I know I really want to land, and here's a place I can get those skills in a cost-effective, efficient way, whether it's on the job, whether it's through a nonprofit, whether it's online, and that those are available to folks in all parts of the state. So it's not that you have to live within 5 miles of a major research institution to get access to that. So I think that change around both being far more aligned with what the employers need and far more nimble so that we can change the training mechanisms much more quickly as your requirements change is going to be the key for us.
And just a follow-up, how do we get more aligned? How do you reach out to businesses? You mentioned we need that, but what's the mechanism?
So I think the mechanism here is employers need to lead this conversation. So what I would do as governor would be to convene employers industry by industry to say, you tell us, when you talk to folks in the startup tech community here, they will tell you pretty clearly what their shortages are around coders and what the same 6 or 8 skills they might all need for those entry-level workers. And yes, they'll all tell you they have about 200 open positions they can't fill. They're trying to recruit folks from Chicago or California and China. So if you let those industry leaders define what the most dominant openings are, what the skill sets are that are aligned to that, and I think it becomes incumbent upon the trainers, upon higher ed, community colleges, others, to now make sure we're delivering skills that are aligned with what employers are demanding.
Thank you. Treasurer Kennedy?
So, Colorado is one of the top business climates in the country because of our educated workforce. 7 in 10 people in our state have a higher education credential, which ranks us in the top among the country. But when you look at the kids that are growing up in Colorado, our kids, only 3 in 10 are getting any higher education credential through their educational career. I visited a school up in Bailey, and I sat down and met with the principal and the teachers, and I asked them about their challenges. They have a program that gives their high schoolers the opportunity to learn employable skills. They put them on a bus and they send them to a trade school where they can get technical skills. They have 50 kids participating, and they have a waiting list of over 100. That's the gap that we face. I think we have a pretty good sense of what we need our kids to be able to learn, and I firmly believe that students starting in high school should have the opportunity to learn employable skills. That's going to take a commitment from all of us. I helped develop the early dual enrollment legislation here in Colorado. We are a national leader in giving kids the opportunity to start to earn their associate's degrees or a professional certificate while they are still in high school. But we have huge gaps across our state. And I believe every high school in Colorado should offer every kid the opportunity, right alongside their pre-college classes, the opportunity to attend courses on coding, courses on emergency medical training, courses on medical records administration, the kind of courses that give them the skills to be able to accept the jobs that you all are creating here in this great state. So I absolutely agree, we need to make the transition much more seamless so that our kids who are in high school are able to stay and continue developing these employable skills. The ones who don't want to go on to a 4-year college are able to get that degree or their certificate. The numbers that I mentioned here are unacceptable for a state with a leading economy. And we need to make the investment in our education system to provide those offerings to kids starting in high school and continuing beyond. Thank you.
And a follow-up to that, you say every high school should be offering these. Colorado has a uniquely, locally run education system. So how do you get every high school offering these? Is this a state mandate? Is it state funded? What would you do?
Oh, it's absolutely funding. School districts across the state know that their students need and want to be able to learn employable skills while they're still in high school and certainly in those years just post-high school. They don't have the resources. The reason the school in Bailey's got 50 kids in the program and 100 kids on the waiting list is that's all they can pay for. So I think you all know we have fallen behind for decades in our investment in education in this state, ever since the Tabor Amendment passed here, and we need to rebuild what we've lost. And where our focus and priority needs to be is really rethinking what do we want kids to be able to know and be able to do when they're 19, when they're 21, when they're 23. We need to give them those opportunities while they're in school all across this state And that's going to take a commitment from all of us and the state to partner with school districts to make sure we're making that investment.
Thank you. All right, let's shift gears here, no pun intended, to transportation. I know from interviews with all of you that all of you want to put more money into that sector, so I don't need you to answer that question. Instead, I'd like to know specifically where you want to get that money to go into transportation, and also where would that money go, both in terms of road versus multimodal transportation, and in terms of state highways versus local roadways. Congressman Polis, let's start with you.
Yeah, this is going to be a very important challenge for the next governor. And as you look at the people on this stage, and hope you're not looking at people that were on the other stage the other week, for governor, you're going to want a governor that can deliver to make sure that we can build the infrastructure to keep Colorado businesses competitive, to maintain our quality of life. I don't think it's healthy for a candidate or a governor to try to impose a particular philosophy around a way to pay for things on people. I think it's important to work with stakeholders, the business community, municipalities, and counties to figure out the best way to pay for it. So I'm not coming to this with some religion that it's got to be this or it's got to be that. I'm coming to it as a pragmatist saying, we all know, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, that we need to get this done for our state to be competitive. We need to build out a 21st century infrastructure, including, of course, multimodal, mass transit. When you look at lane expansions, and of course I've supported and worked on a number in northern Colorado, Highway 36 Coalition, 25 North, lane expansion alone is never going to be the answer. By the time some of those projects are done, you're back to where you were with regard to the traffic. So we've got to look at big ideas like Front Range Rail, like tying into from the suburbs into our existing light rail and bus system, transit plan communities so people can afford to live closer to where they work affordably with the opportunity to get to work where the jobs are. So we need to think big. When we talk about infrastructure, it's not just moving people, it's also moving bits and bytes. And that's why part of my infrastructure plan is rural broadband and connectivity. It directly ties in the form of enabling telecommuting and location-independent employment, but it also ties in making sure that no part of Colorado is left behind and will help build the political coalition to pass at the ballot box to make sure the rural communities know that their future is tied up in making sure that they're part of the Colorado success story as well.
And follow up to that, I know you said that we don't need to be tied to a particular funding source, but you mentioned the chamber earlier. If they put a sales tax hike on the November ballot, would you back it?
I'll look at whatever the chamber's doing. They presented to me some of the things they're considering. So obviously we don't know what they're doing or if they're doing something, but I know that there's a number of folks that are looking at different ways of paying for it. I think, again, it's got to be a broad coalition. I think the chamber is trying to do that. If I was governor, frankly, I'd play a little bit more of a hands-on role on that. It shouldn't fall strictly to an outside group. I think the role of governor as convener is a critical one, working with the business community, with Republicans, Democrats, and important industries to find a winning coalition to get ahead of the curve on infrastructure. And while I wish the chamber well, if they don't succeed at the ballot box this year, that'll be one of my top priorities as governor to build that coalition and get it done.
Thank you. Senator Johnson?
Thank you. A couple issues you mentioned, both what is the impact on rural and urban, what are the modes of transportation to invest in, and then what are the right strategies to pay for them. Obviously, this is a place too where as a business owner, this is not a hypothetical debate for us, right? When we look at our returns every month for my kind of business in Eagle County, and we have more and more guests who come to our bed and breakfast and say, you know what, we've been coming for 20 years, but this is our last time. We're going to Salt Lake next year because we can fly into Salt Lake, we can be in Deer Valley in 30 minutes, we don't sit for 4 hours on I-70 and wonder if we're not going to make our flight home. And you hear that from businesses all the way from Clear Creek to Summit, all the way up and down those corridors, and same with I-25. And so I think this is beyond just being a convenience for folks on the way to work in metro areas and a lot of the rural parts of the state that rely on tourism. This is a crisis. And I would also say it is also a matter of public safety in some places, not just a matter of convenience. So if you go to places like the $1 Million Highway, right, from Durango down to Telluride, right, by the time they break you down on this trip, you will find that that's not a matter of traffic. It's a matter of fact they have 4 traffic deaths, fatalities on that road in the last year alone, because it's a one-lane road with no rumble strips and no guardrails. Right? And so I think in rural Colorado, there are real issues of public safety that are driving this, not just issues of traffic. So I think that's why this has got to be a statewide solution that includes both local roads as well as state infrastructure. I do think you're going to have to look at ways to solve not just the long mile problems, but the last mile problems, right? Which are, yes, if we do more rail, that's great, but if you get folks into Denver, and I made that trip to Denver a lot as a kid, and you got to do 4 or 5 stops, it has to be reasonable for you to be able to get around 4 or 5 stops in the metro area without having your car here. So I think things like Chariot and other coordinated travel applications that allow you to move people in more group strategies are going to be more effective than just the arterial solutions. We'll need both. On funding, I think there have been 2 strategies I think are compelling. I think Kyle Concern's proposal of specific ownership tax I thought had promise. I also think the chamber approaches have promise. I think the reason why they both are promising is that they're focused on a long-term sustainable revenue stream. What you can't do is tie to a gas tax that's going to be in perpetual decline and not going to sustain road traffic. And so I think we need to move to, as the amount of time, we need to move to a sustainable funding source that's going to remain consistent regardless of the change in vehicle technology.
Thank you very much. Treasurer Kennedy.
As we look forward in our state, we are forecasting Colorado to have our state's population double in the next 30, 40, 50 years. So when we think about investing in transportation, I think we have to think about what our needs are going to be with 10 million people here, not just 5.5. We need to think long term. That has to be multimodal. As Mike said, we're not going to be able to widen our way out of this problem. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't invest in our highway capacity. We absolutely should. It has to be a priority, but it has to be in conjunction with transit investments like high-speed passenger rail, so that we give people alternatives to get off of our highways and reduce the demand on the system. It means investing in rural roads throughout this state, where the only way to move product to market is on those narrow mountain corridors. And when we think about the investment we need to make with 10 million people here, I think we need to think big and we need to think broadly. Our main source of funding for transportation in this state has been the fuel tax for almost 100 years. It has been eroding in this state for the past 30 years. Our main source of funding. Today, our funding, our revenues for transportation infrastructure has half of the purchasing power that it did 30 years ago. Half of the purchasing power, with a much bigger population and much larger vehicle miles traveled. So we have to address the funding issue, and the question that I think we have to address is what percent, how much of that is going to come through some sort of user pay pricing mechanism. We're certainly seeing a lot of new toll roads and fee-based infrastructure being built, versus what's going to be paid for through alternative long-term tax structures like you're seeing these groups develop. And quite frankly, I'm really pleased to see the chamber and the business community stepping forward, developing proposals to put in front of Colorado's voters. People are tired of sitting in traffic. I applaud your efforts. I chaired Governor Ritter's Transportation and Finance Implementation Panel and helped develop the only new revenue for transportation infrastructure in the state in the last 30 years. And I will look forward to working with all of you on addressing this critical issue and building for the future.
So, Treasurer Kennedy, let me throw your question back at you. You said we have to address how much through user pay versus how much through long-term taxation. Give me a rough idea what you think that division should be.
I think that's the hard work that we have to do. We need to roll up our sleeves and have this conversation. Ever since Tabor passed, we've been moving rapidly towards more of a toll-based system. I gave a speech once and I said, look, taxes have to go to the voters and get approved. Tolls are something that can be put in place just as a fee without a vote. What do you think is going to happen? Right? I mean, of course, that's been the solution because it's something the legislature can do within their existing legal constraints. And it's why I am pleased to see the chamber recognizing that you have to make statewide investments. It can't all just be private pay or user pay. We have to make the investments in rural roads. We have to make the investments in highway capacity. So that's why I'm pleased to see groups coming forward. I will help lead those efforts as governor.
Lieutenant Governor Lynn.
Well, I think as many of you know, late last night we were able to get Senate Bill 1 through the legislature based on the governor's proposal to put $500 million of general fund money into transportation. Really unprecedented because, as you heard, we don't have funding in our general fund for transportation. I will caution you, though, that $500 million for next year is a one-time only contribution. So we do need a sustainable flow of money into transportation. At the same time, I think when we ask you to pay more taxes, whether you're businesses or you're individuals, we owe you accountability. And last year, when we worked on the initiative to put more money into transportation, we were very clear what you were going to get if you were going to vote on any type of tax increase, whether it's a sales tax, or it's a gas tax, or it's an SOT, that we would tell you where those roads or where multimodal is going to go. And that's, to me, the key message. We can't just ask you for money. We have to be accountable. Not only where are the improvements going to happen. So you would have gotten, if you had voted on our tax initiative from last year, where the $9 billion that we need through 2025 would actually go. So if you live in Colorado Springs or you live in La Junta, you'd be able to know that. So I think transparency and accountability around any initiative that we have is going to be important. The second is, transportation is not an issue in isolation. We've got to talk about what do we need transportation for and how's the future going to change. Because if we finance something with a 20-year view, which I'm not opposed to, we also have to recognize how technology is changing, what's happening with autonomous and semi-autonomous vehicles, because if we simply build extra lanes, we're not taking into account how flows are going to change and how people should move. I do support more funding for multimodal or mass transit. We've got to move people, whether it's from an environmental perspective or just crowding the roads perspective. We need to give the state, I believe, the bulk of the money because the state is the master planner. Local communities will get a share. I would argue, I've heard a lot of numbers tossed around over the last several weeks as we've been working on this, on these proposals, but the majority of the money needs to go to the state. We have the master plans. We will work with communities. Communities should still get a significant share of that, but we've got the plans and I think can execute on that.
And as a follow-up, you detailed kind of where the money should go. Where's it coming from? What would be the sustainable source you want?
And I think, as I said, there is the potential for more general fund money in future years, but I'm a little wary of that because we will have a recession come hell or high water, and we've got to have a reserve and the way to pay for other programs that are going to need money in the future. I'm in support of the voters making that decision. I think the sales tax proposal that the chamber has is a good one, and we ought to, we will ask that question, and if we don't get that approved in 2019, we'll come back to bonding.
Thank you. All right, let's turn now to energy, and we're going to mix up the format a little bit because I want to start here with a few simple show of hands questions for all our candidates before we get into the essay style response. First of all, how many of you support a ballot measure that's been proposed to increase setbacks to 2,500 feet? Okay, that's nobody. How many support giving local governments more authority over drilling rules? All right, we've got 2. How many support raising severance taxes to generate funds for the Colorado Water Plan? Nobody. And how many support raising renewable energy goals above the current 30% mark? That's across the board. All right, with that as the background, I'll ask you a 3-part question here, literally essay style. Under your governorship, what specific regulations would you install or remove regarding the oil and gas industry? What role would renewables play in the state? And how do you address concerns from homeowners about encroachment of drilling? Let's start with Senator Johnson.
Thank you. Renewables, rules, what was your third?
Encroachment on homes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think there is a couple of pieces of important framework. One is I do think we have to move long-term more aggressively towards a more renewable energy economy, and particularly towards, you set out a goal to get to 100% on the electric grid by 2040, which both creates jobs as well as driving down utility rates. So I think that's an important long-term goal. Along the way, I think there are important balances between public health and safety, as well as a stable operating environment that are both critical. And so I've said yes, I do believe the Constitution is clear that folks in a split mineral estate have the right to extract minerals that they have property rights invested in, and so that means I don't believe you can ban access to those minerals, and I think it does help us to have one set of statewide regulations to make it easier for folks to operate in. I also think given that, we have to make real accommodations for public health and safety statewide, and that means a couple of requirements. One is I think we ought to not drill in places that are environmentally sensitive. I think we ought to look very carefully at proposals to drill in places like the sand dunes, which is a long-term heritage of Colorado. I think we ought not to drill in places that are ecologically unstable. If you look at earthquake maps of Oklahoma where you're drilling into sandstone, and then you have the sandstone collapse, it's also not a good practice. And the third is, I do think we're going to have a conversation about how you reassess what the setback should be from homes and businesses. I think the advent of horizontal drilling means that you can, if you have a 2-mile horizontal drill, it's much easier to be able to pick your locations than it might have been 20 years ago. I think that creates a lot of opportunity from the advances in technology. I think the 2 crises to resolve right now are, one, you have to figure out how we're going to address plugging and abandoning up to 1,000 orphan wells across the state that have risk of leakage like we saw in homes and fires. So I think it's a fair expectation for folks who want to know they're safe in their homes. I think that's going to be critical. And the other is to get to zero leakage along those pipelines. So set a zero leakage goal to make sure where we are using pipelines which can reduce both noise impact and as well as truck traffic on neighborhoods, to make sure that is a safe option for us by ensuring that those pipelines where they exist have zero leakage. So I think those are the things that are long-term goals that allow us to balance a strong economic climate as well as ensuring public health and safety.
And just to follow up, when you talk about plugging orphan wells, getting to zero leakage, what's the state's role in that? Is it that it's going to have to help these companies fund it, or just tell them that they're going to have to do this?
Well, I think you always have to work collaboratively to say, how are we going to get this done together? But I do think that, a lot of these folks are small operators that came out as wildcatters and dug a well and then went broke along the way and up and left. And so there's no rightful ownership to those. And I think some of our larger operators have been good about taking on that responsibility. I think we're going to have a conversation with the industry about how do we collectively take ownership over those that have really been abandoned and have no current ownership.
Thank you. Treasurer Kennedy?
I believe Colorado is and should continue to be a national leader in transitioning to clean, renewable sources of energy. Climate change is one of the most pressing issues in all of our lifetimes. And we need to take the steps as a state to reduce our carbon emissions as quickly as we can. And I think we all understand the science and we all understand the impacts that we're seeing in our environment. But it's not just because of climate change. Transitioning to clean, renewable sources of energy is also a huge business and market opportunity for this state. Thousands of jobs have been created throughout rural Colorado with an enormous potential for the future. And Colorado companies and businesses and research institutions are developing some of the most forward-looking, innovative technology that will be used not just in the transition to wind and sun in Colorado, not just in the United States, but around the world. So it is a huge economic opportunity for our state. That doesn't mean the oil and gas industry isn't also important in our state. We are one of the largest producers of oil and gas in the country. It is a critical component of Colorado's environment, of our economy, and also to the nation's energy security. So I am not, I'm not one of the folks that you would see wanting to do harm. I want the energy industry to be successful here. But we also have to recognize that people that are living in communities that have oil and gas operations in their neighborhoods, close by, close to their homes, need to feel safe. They need to believe that the regulatory environment that exists at the state and local level is keeping them safe, that their kids can go down and play by the river, that the air quality, the water quality, and the safety protections, the monitoring that are in place, keep them, their families, their children safe. And I do believe we have some work to do together to give folks that confidence, but I also believe we can do that and continue to have this industry very successful in our city.
Let's just keep going on that theme. What are the things that we need to do to make people feel safe? What kind of things would you put in place as governor?
Well, right now, you've got local communities feeling like they don't have a voice. In some communities and some operators, I think we have very successful models in this state where the community feels like there's a partnership between the industry, the local government, the state government, where they're able to negotiate an arrangement that gives them confidence that their air quality, their water quality, the safety measures are being invested in. In other circumstances, you hear the complete opposite. And that's where you see these ballot measures. It's where you see these lawsuits. People in these communities feel like nobody's listening to me, and I am worried. And so I think we have to work on the structure that we have today. That's why I support giving local communities more autonomy over their regulatory environment so that they can represent the people who live in their communities and be able to negotiate with the industry around basic issues, noise, setbacks, light, sound, water quality monitoring, air quality, all the above. It's affiliated with any industrial operation, not just the energy industry.
Thank you. Lieutenant Governor Lynn?